Hey, what's up, everybody? Property Management Roundtable is back with episode 2. Today's discussion, we talk about social media, all the crazy things property managers post on social media. We talk a little bit about that. Next thing we talk about is a little coronavirus talk. We talk about our cities opening back up, when that's going to happen, what we're seeing in the South, in the North, in the West. The next thing is our leasing, how coronavirus has affected our leasing, and also how it has affected owner leads and some things we're doing while owner leads are down to generate some interest in our businesses. Then we hit on some mergers and acquisitions talk. There's a little bit of ribbing that goes on there. I think you'll enjoy that part. Then we talk about hiring during coronavirus and especially the CFO position. So we actually get into a pretty detailed discussion on things that we're looking at in CFOs, people that have actually hired CFOs, a lot of accounting and finance issues that we brought up. The next thing we talk about is the one thing we do every day for success. And a lot of us didn't limit that to one thing, but talk about the daily disciplines, our habits of success. And then the last thing I will promote is what are you reading? We talk about the books that we're reading, the things that we're learning from them. And then there's a nugget at the end. So I'm going to leave that up to you. I hope you listen to the whole thing. I hope you enjoy episode 2 of the Property Management Roundtable. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Property Management Roundtable. I've got the Wolf Pack back here for another episode. What's up, guys? First question, I'm just going to lob it out there because I've been wondering it. Why do property managers have so much time to spend on Facebook?
Oh, my God. Matthew.
Yeah, well, I mean, most don't. Some do. Some post a lot.
Are you naming names?
This has been a burning question in my mind for so long. I mean, there's a couple different ideas here, right? Like you either are working in your business and you're busy doing all that stuff, or you've got a bunch of people employed and you can just sit around on discussion boards and Facebook and post memes all day. I don't know. Everybody always says how busy they are in this industry. I've said this at multiple talks that I've given in conferences. They always say how busy they are. Property management is just, we're crazy for being in this business. We're so busy all the time. But man, my Facebook feed is pretty freaking active it's all property managers. It's all property managers. My mom doesn't even post anymore because she knows I'm not going to see it because it's just property managers at this point.
I feel like a pretty crappy business owner because I don't have time to get on Facebook. When I do, it's just hours and hours of property managers asking rando questions and people's opinions on how to handle certain things.
You do have a lot of time to do podcasts, though.
I do. Yeah. Well, only with you guys.
Is that the Matthew Whitaker equivalent of posting on Facebook?
It must be. It must be. Guilty as charged.
At least you're providing valuable content for the people out there.
Well, Mikey does a good job of posting his workouts on Facebook. It's either a Todd O post or a Mikey workout post.
I'm fallen off on the PM Health group. I probably post. I don't know. I'm probably like 20th on the list of people that post in there. But you're right. When I do post, it's usually about working out or randomly about property management occasionally.
Did you post your backwards, I'm getting skinnier photo where you put the fat version of you on the right side instead of the skinny version of you on the right side?
I have not. I'm waiting for the big reveal on the before and after. Fat Mike has not made a recent appearance on the internet yet. So.
We've seen Pulp Fiction, right? He wants a pot. He wants a pot belly. So he's growing into the pot belly.
Have you been saving newspapers so you can take a picture with one?
Correct way to do it before and after. I did not know that.
Well, everybody knows that your before picture goes on the left side and your after picture goes on the right. I mean, it's the only place that's not true is in China where they read, I think, right to left, right?
That could be. That's exactly what I'm going to do.
I had no idea. Now
That's
I know.
What I'm going to do. When I get hair plugs, I'm going to do it the right way.
Yes,
right,
left
Vince?
to right.
Yeah. But in all seriousness, Tim, on Matthew's topic about Facebook and posting, I want to hear your opinion because I think you're pretty good at this. Like, when I go to the message boards of Facebook for property management stuff, it's a lot of noise. And every now and then there's a good nugget in there or some good content. It seems like a couple of folks kind of dominate with noise. Where do you find is the best, like, just place to get information, share information on Facebook? Do you have one or two particular pages or groups that you like or don't like?
Yeah, I mean, I like the NARPM discussion board, and then I like the broker owner discussion board. And I'll tell you, I often find, I think you got to switch your mindset a little bit when you're on social media. Like, I know, like my dad, for example, I tried to get him to get on Twitter instead of watching MSNBC because it just drives me crazy, him watching MSNBC and quoting it to me all the time. But, so people are afraid of it. They're like, oh, what about all the bad stuff? Well, yeah, you look at the bad stuff just the same way you look at the good stuff. I'm on Facebook at this point, so I know how not to be in my life. Like, I'm not on there to get news. I'm on there to look at people who are acting silly and think, oh, I don't want to look like that person. I shouldn't have that opinion. What's the Dwight Schrute thing? What does he say?
He said, if I see an idiot doing something, I don't do that, or something like that, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you see these people out there, and they're just like, they're asking these crazy questions. Should I do this to a tenant? This landlord asked me to contact them today. They're such a jerk, I'm going to fire them. I'm like, what? Yeah. No, like, we're in property management. You should be contacting those people. And
right.
Yeah, sure. There are obviously good nuggets out there. Like I said, that broker owner one is pretty good. And the mastermind one, I think those are the two, along with, obviously, I support everything NARPM, but change your mindset. Think about it from a perspective of what can I learn from the people who are posting the dumb stuff.
So it's like
the dumb stuff outweighs.
Right. So you're saying it's become like the tabloids. Like, you read for entertainment value, shock value, but there are nuggets in there, right? Like, you do.
Yes.
There are times where you'll go to those message boards, ask a sincere question, and get some decent feedback, right?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, sure. And the thing that I really like is following the vendors that we use. A lot of people from like Second Nature and Property Meld, they post a lot of stuff that actually can be of value because that's their goal, right? They want to be of value to their clients. And so I end up following a lot more of what those people post directly than maybe, diving deep into those comments when you get there.
Speaking of Second Nature, I know, Mike, you sent the email today. You guys got the email about they're sending out the foldable air filter.
I just saw an email from them that was.
So if Thad and Second Nature were a stock, I would go long on that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You get the significance, Matthew, right? Like, the air filter, they have a patent on a flexible air filter. So instead of paying $6 for shipping, they're going to pay 68 cents or whatever for shipping.
Yeah, all margin for them.
And their prices, their income doesn't change. Their cost just gets cut like in half overnight. That's pretty amazing.
It's good to be.
I have a question. I have a question for you guys.
I have
a question for you guys on the message boards. You've all been in them a lot longer than I have. In the evolution of the message board, have you seen the internet tough guy, like, one-way kind of communicator increase over time, or has it always been this bad?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Mike, take that one.
Like, was there a point in time?
I'm probably one of the least active on the Facebook Messenger boards here.
He's too busy working out and taking selfies.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I feel like you do see a lot of the same posters over and over again. And for me, I just, if somebody runs their business a lot differently than me, like, you can pull small pieces from those posts, but for the most part, I end up tuning those people out because my company doesn't line up with their company. So, I can't really follow their business plan because it's so jarringly different from them than from what we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish. We have no intention of, like, completely cutting all staff and going to, virtual employees and remote international team members to maximize profit today. That's just not what we're looking to do. We're trying to be a very high level customer service business. So a lot of times when I hear or read some of those posts, I just have to kind of take it with a grain of salt. So it is interesting though, Vincent, you do see a lot of the same people over and over again, just kind of pushing. But at the same time, those people also make the forums go,
Yeah.
I think you also ought to make you think, right? Like, if somebody has a different business plan, then you want to be able to, like, take the noise out of it and think about, hey, is there a way that I can move closer to this, maybe cut some costs, but also not cut any customer service. And in what you were just talking about, I think it's super important to listen to different opinions. Now, some of those opinions are more aggressive, obviously, but super important to listen to the opinions and think, hey, what can I do to, make my business better on these forums? And that's one of the things that amazed me. At least until the last 6 months, I was not even on Facebook. I hadn't even logged in probably 2 or 3 years. And I didn't realize, I'm a very consistent poster on LinkedIn, but I didn't realize how much I should have been on Facebook probably the whole time, and was really missing the boat. I was out there swimming by myself on LinkedIn, and everybody else was having the La Vila Club party on Facebook without me.
Matthew, I think you bring up a good point though about yeah, that's funny.
Is Club La Vila still a thing?
Yeah, it's still a thing.
Sure.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Really?
It was until coronavirus. Now,
Yeah.
There's other viruses you got to worry about there.
That's true.
That's true. You bring up a good point though about learning from stuff that's different than you. You guys, that's one of the things I always like about us. We all have those similar goals we talked about last week, but we might have different exit strategies. One might be long term, one might be short term, and it just makes you think differently and changes your perspective. Even you being on LinkedIn, I used to never get on LinkedIn. In fact, somebody messaged me the other week on LinkedIn, and I'd totally forgotten I had a profile. But now I've been on it for a couple of weeks, and it's actually been pretty valuable. So it's just it's just different perspectives, what you take in. It's like reading a book that you don't agree with, or for me, watching Fox News, right? Like just you might learn a little something even if you disagree with it.
Speaking of Fox News, is the country opening up? How do you guys feel? This is like, I don't hear your perspective in Alabama, Matthew. Like, how do you feel the opening up is happening, not happening, gonna help, gonna hurt?
Fantastic segue, by the way.
As pertains to your business, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm in the South, as you guys know, and I think it's probably a good thing for us. Well, one of the things is it hasn't been as bad here as kind of the original estimates were thinking. So that's a good thing, and we're starting to open up. We started to allow people back in restaurants in Georgia, Tennessee. Alabama still isn't letting people back in restaurants, but we're starting to kind of loosen some of the restrictions. Really what I want is for our residents to go back to work so that we don't have this long-term impact on rental payments. I do think the short term, the May and June rental payments are probably taken care of through the stimulus package and through the extra unemployment. But I worry about kind of third quarter rental payments. And if we can open up, it's very hot here. So today it's in the low to mid 80s, sunny, all things that apparently the coronavirus does not like. And I really feel like, especially here in the South, if we can start to open some things back up, maybe we can pave a way for areas that are cooler to also learn some things and open back up. What I don't want to have happen is, which would be devastating, is kind of a second rash of viruses. And of course, nobody knows if that's going to happen. But one of the things that is happening is, even though things are opening up, people are still social distancing. So some of the shops are open. They only allow a number of people in there. And I'm still like, nobody's come back to our office. We're just going to keep working remotely. We were set up to do that before, and we're just going to keep working remotely. Until I know that there's not going to be a second rash of viruses, I'm just going to keep people where they're at. I don't want that second disruption of bringing them back and then sending them back home.
Vance, what's it like in California and San Francisco right now?
Yeah, I'm on as far of like the spectrum as it can be in San Francisco. We were the first to shelter in place. Mayor Breed just passed that we're still in shelter in place all of May, so through June 1st. There was some restrictions allowed, removed today. So like real estate transactions could proceed, like agents could show houses, construction workers could get back to work. So they're starting to open up a little bit, but we're seeing, like I saw City Hall on Sunday, bunch of protesters at City Hall saying, let's open back up. So I think what you're seeing is just,
you have Republicans in California?
Surprisingly, yeah.
Well, they shipped them in from Nebraska. Yeah.
I mean, down in Southern California, Michael, actually, I'd be curious if Mark heard any of this down there, but they shut down all the beaches, but then they're allowing, so people are allowed to go into Target and touch all the stuff, and a bunch of people in a store like Target, but then the mayor's saying you can't go to any of the beaches, right? Where it's sunny out, and they're restricting people to go in certain places. So it's getting to be that area where I think people are starting to revolt a little bit. And, I think I share a similar sentiment with Matthew. Like we want to open up responsibly. I think you could open up and still socially distant and practice good hygiene and, continue to practice those things, because we may see a second wave in August, or flu season's, around the corner. So I think there's just a lot of politically charged things happening right now that I think are affecting a lot.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to just not having the answers, right? And, I sit here and I'd love to hear y'all's perspectives, because I don't have the answers, and I usually try to pride myself on being the most opinionated jerk in the circle. But I mean, what do you?
That was
the
goal. That was the goal. You've achieved it. Thanks.
I've achieved it. Thank you. I appreciate that. But I'm frankly, I'm scared of it. I'm concerned. I've got an autoimmune deficiency, and the people with autoimmune disorders are dying at higher rates than other people. So obviously I don't want to get it. My parents are both high risk, but at the same time, what are you going to tell your friend who, my buddy owns some restaurants in town, right? If he has to close all of his restaurants forever and because he can't open in the next 2 weeks, how do I tell him, hey, I'm scared of dying, so you can't open your restaurants? But at the same time, you don't want to have that return. You don't want to have the relapse or whatever it is.
Because everybody right now has been posting about the Spanish flu and like the second wave.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen all that, right? I don't know how similar this would be, but I'm sure if we opened up gangbusters, there would be quite a second wave. If we don't, there'll probably be a wave.
I don't know how we, even with social distancing, and as I've got my hand sanitizer right here, we're talking about it, so I was going to pump my hand sanitizer there. But until there's testing, and until there are, tons of testing and a vaccine, like, you can't really guarantee anything. So if I go play golf, am I not going to go see my parents for 3 weeks? Like, I don't know. It's just going to be, it's just interesting. And I like hearing the different perspectives. I think it's dangerous if we don't open up, but I think I saw somebody on the news the other night say the choice is not open up or we have people die, but that really kind of is maybe a little bit of the choice. Like, we have to make a choice between getting the economy back going and putting people at risk a little bit more than we are now. And it's a tough choice, and I don't have the answers.
So I looked into this a little bit this weekend because my wife has an autoimmune issue. And so she also is fairly high risk. And my parents are coming to town, and they came in from Ohio, and they want to visit with the kids, and they want to see us. And it's been a debate at my house as to whether or not we actually allow them to come over and hang out. Right. And so it came up. I was like, well, is there any higher risk? Like, what's happening to the businesses who have stayed open, right? You're asking about reopening. So I looked it up, and of course I found data on like supermarkets, and 30 people who work at supermarkets across America have now died, right? 30 out of 300 million, and if you do the math, I did the math, I think I forget the exact statistics, but basically it was like 1 in 100,000 people who work in supermarkets have died due to COVID-19. Right. So that's way lower than the general population. And I get it. Like, elderly are higher affected and there's different things, but still, if you just look at that 1 in 100,000, and those businesses have stayed open the entire time, and they have a very, very, very low death rate. Right. So but that's death rate, not infected rate. So I'm not worried about necessarily. Wouldn't they just coincide? What? Wouldn't they just coincide pretty closely? I mean, just for the
no, not necessarily. I mean,
it's like 1 in 6,000 for the general population, right, or something along those lines. Anyway, it's my point is, like, there is definitely not a higher death rate for people who work in supermarkets than there is for the general population. And in fact, it's exact opposite. And they've been open the entire time.
Well, you would think that would be the case, though, because people who are working at the supermarket are of working age. Generally, they're healthy. So the higher risk people are definitely elderly people with conditions already. So that actually goes right in line with what I would think would be the case. Again, it's not necessarily the death thing that I'm afraid of. It's, because one person died right at my Kroger right here, and another person got it right at my parents' Kroger up the street. It would be them having it and not knowing it and giving it to other people that might be those high risk people. There's no doubt that it's mostly just the high risk people that are getting it. And that's what we're hedging against, right? We're saying, grandma and grandpa, mom and dad, we don't want you to get it.
I'm sorry I brought this up, Max.
What about, I do have a question.
Yeah, let's change the subject.
What about leasing? Talk to me a little bit about how your leasing's changed.
From death right into leasing. Okay.
Yeah.
Our leasing is, we've a ton of inquiries. It just feels like the hot season right now. A lot of people are moving. I don't know how the exact.
Are they
stats
allowed to move in
me.
California?
Yeah, they are. Right now on leasing, 31% increase week over week.
Can you get a moving truck, like a commercial moving truck in San Francisco right now?
Can you get one?
Yeah. Are they
yes.
essential?
Yes. I believe so.
Okay. What about y'all in Richmond?
I mean, I'll let Tim speak to single fam. For the most part, multifam has been pretty decent. I would say Class A neighborhoods, the hot neighborhoods are still hot. It feels like it's a slight tick down, but it's not much. Some apartment buildings are doing better than they were. Some are doing worse, but for them across the board, it's very close to where we should be. Tim, do you want to go into more detail on the single fam and small apartment?
Yeah, and I was trying to pull up our scorecard right here so I could give you guys some more exact numbers. But yeah, I mean, it seems to be, anecdotally, as I'm trying to pull it up here, what I've heard is that we are getting way fewer leads. However, our closing percentage is much, much higher. And you can actually see that, our applications, just our income in March and April was down pretty significantly, which stinks. But yeah, I mean, our leads are down, 20, 30%, but our leases per week are about the same per team. So, that's good news. I'm hoping that move-ins will continue to happen. We've got a couple snafus where people have signed leases and ended up not being able to move in for one reason or another. So, we're trying to be as communicative as possible and try to make sure that we mitigate that as much as we can. But yeah, I've seen on the single family side, fewer people, but same higher closing percentages overall.
Hey guys, and then also I'm going to correct myself on that. So the Bay Area we're down week over week, but nationwide we're up. I think that where we've seen the biggest uptick is our central region, so Texas primarily. That's where the biggest increase in leasing activities happen.
Yeah, Mikey, you're leasing down there. How's it in Orlando?
We are up. We're actually right in line with the average. Last 3 weeks, we've actually seen a little bit of an uptick. We're about 20% higher than our average per week. So I would agree. It kind of feels like, I think we went through a little bit of a lull and then kind of are making up for that now. Mid-March kind of dipped, and then the last 3 weeks have gone back up.
Matthew, you guys, how your market's doing?
Ours is crazy. South, we're up almost 2.5 times in terms of applications. What's interesting is our number of showings has remained fairly constant, but we went from like 100 applications a week to 3 weeks ago we got 224, then we got 253, and then last week we had 180. So it's just been crazy around here trying to get all these applications processed. That's been one of the big challenges, is our application processing pipeline or machine was really only built for about 100 applications a week. And when you double it and then some, I was in here processing applications for a lot of the 2 or 3 weeks that we've been doing it. So just kind of crazy numbers. But the good news is we're leasing houses and people are moving. Denver even is way up. I mean, 4 weeks ago, they got 17 applications and they've averaged 50 for the last 3 weeks. So it's
Hey, Matthew, did you change your fees or anything for your leasing, like your application fees, or did you change anything?
No, all of that is fairly consistent. The only thing we probably may have done was added some more support communicating in the leasing world to prospective applicants.
So we've talked about month over month this year, but what about year over year, Matthew? Those application numbers, I know you guys keep those pretty tight. Is that, do you think that is just now we're getting into the leasing season, or is that, what is that data telling us, I guess?
I think it's leasing season come early, right? Like kids are out of school, parents are working from home. Hey, let's go ahead and move. Let's get a jump on moving. And I think it's just the early leasing season. I just think it's been extended out by about an extra 6 weeks. So it hopefully will continue to be as good, but I think it's just people getting a jump on things.
Yeah, that's a good point, because it's usually so cyclical around the school year.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine sitting around, kids are at home, doing school from home, you're at home, working from home. Let's move.
You realize, like, I've done more home improvement projects in the last month and a half than I did in the last 5 years, because I'm sitting there looking at it every day, and you see all the things that are wrong with your house. And I'm sure that applies to moving as well. You might just say, screw it, I'll move now versus waiting.
And you're also seeing some folks who sold their house was on the market. They sold, they were intending to buy another house. With the standstill, with the economic situation, they're deciding to rent right now instead of buying another home.
Yeah,
they're great renters, but it's there's a big pool of those folks.
Yeah.
Did you end up spraying that wasp's nest over the weekend?
I did. I add that to the list of things I've accomplished at my house. Whenever I can change a light bulb or knock off a bee's nest this big, I strut around the house like I've just won the NBA championship. And my wife
have some of those.
My wife's pretty impressed.
Speaking of
hornets in them?
No, thank God. No.
Did anybody see my strain score on Saturday? I tilled my whole yard, and it was like a 17 or 18 strain.
Just from yard work?
From yard work.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Those are Mikey Krause-like numbers, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, they were. And
he
ended up beating me. But
I had an extra activity in the afternoon. I'm like, what is that? My wife was cutting my hair. And so
it was causing anxiety.
And you were like, oh my God, look at this dude. I got like a 7 strain because she was cutting my hair.
That's funny. That day that you realize why my strain score is so high when I play golf, because I'm an anxious wreck for 4 straight hours, and my heart is just pumping nonstop. So it's funny how that works.
I'll tell you one negative correlation with the coronavirus is new management contracts. So I'm interested in what you guys are doing to spark some new contracts.
I'm not certain that I've got the answers to that, but we got a little bit lucky. We had just signed up right before this whole thing. We just took over end of last week a new 75 unit single family client. So that's probably inflating our numbers a little bit. Like we had 85 new units in March, but then we had another 30 in April. So I think what we're finding is we're having a little bit more time to lean on the larger investors, give them a little bit more hand holding, analyze their portfolios a little bit more to give them some more information. So that's what we've been trying to do, because frankly, the one-off owners, they're not as willing and ready to make the decision. We're still getting leads. Every single day that are coming in, but we're leaning on those investors that might have 4 or 5, where we can do a little bit more market analysis and show them that they can save a little bit of money with us. So I think spending a little bit more time hand-holding, going a little bit deeper into those accounts or those leads, following up on those leads even from last year. That's what we've been concentrating on.
Are your leads down?
Slightly.
Okay.
Not a lot. Yeah.
What about y'all, Vince?
Yeah, they're down, but I mean, we're doing a lot of education right now to prospective clients. Also, just making sure our owners are feeling okay about the situation and keeping them up to speed in each of our markets. But we've also started to, there's a lot of short-term rental folks out there that short-term rental isn't exactly what it used to be. So, we're trying to get in front of some of those owners and prove to them the value of long-term rental. So I've cultivated some partnerships with a few short-term rental firms that have been looking for a long-term rental partner. So, I'd encourage you guys to do the same. It's been interesting, and I think it could be a post-COVID long-term relationship as well.
I actually saw Warren Buffett just said that the vacation and travel industry is just not going to come back in his opinion, is not going to come back very fast. If you saw, he had like 4 airline stocks that he dumped all his airline stocks because he sees no like quick recovery in travel, especially from a vacation standpoint. So you would think that would crush the short-term rental industry, even though if it hasn't already been crushed. I know a number of people in that industry that have just suffered some serious setbacks.
Yeah, for every like one, you hear the stories about somebody who goes and quarantines, like at the Outer Banks, for example, and rents a house for 2 or 3 straight months. For every one of those stories, which is good for the industry, you hear, 7 or 8 bad stories, like really bad.
Yeah, our owner leads are down about 50%. So we're kind of struggle bus right now, trying to figure out how can we. But we just landed a 21 house client, so that was obviously good. But you're right, Tim. It does kind of change the numbers a little bit when you land some of those bigger clients. What I think is happening is that a lot of these clients are sitting on the sidelines trying to figure out what to do. And as soon as some sort of clarity happens on when the country's going to open back up, then maybe they'll make some decisions, especially who we call Susie Homeowner, who's kind of the one house, one owner profile. And that profile seems to be just kind of waiting, figuring, am I going to sell this house? Am I going to rent it? And just trying to figure out what they're doing.
Matthew, go ahead.
What are you doing to stay on top of those folks? Just put them in your regular drip campaign, or are you doing anything different?
Yeah, we're following up with them. The thing is, I don't think that they're reaching out yet. The fact that our leads are so far down is just really kind of a crazy thing. I mean, literally down 50% over about 2 months ago. And so my hope is, though, that they'll start to reach out as soon as everybody has more clarity. I just think we'll have a huge increase. We just hired 4 BDMs. So we have one in Birmingham, a new one in Denver, a new one in Atlanta, and a new one in Nashville. And so we need some leads to start rolling in because we're paying these BDMs money to sit around. And they're calling the same people over and over again every day, trying to get them to sign an agreement at this point.
Nothing I like more than a salesperson that calls me every day during a pandemic.
Just following up in the subject line. Just wanted to follow up with you.
Matthew, your BDMs are in the markets, right? Not at the corporate office, correct?
They are. We actually tried it at the corporate office and found that familiarity with the area was what was super important. Knowing, like, take Denver, for instance. When you're trying to sell a Colorado management agreement and you just graduated from the University of Boulder, University of Colorado at Boulder, and you know all the streets and the restaurants, then you make a quicker connection than somebody from Birmingham trying to sell somebody in Denver. So we've just found, and some places would prefer you to come out and look at the house. Birmingham's an area where we have a lot of out-of-state investors, so it's not, people don't want us necessarily to come look at the house. But in Nashville and Denver, people really want you to come see that house, especially that Susie Homeowner profile.
Yeah. Can we talk about, on this topic about just new business? Matthew, have you tried to push any acquisition targets over the edge in the last month with, the big topic being that with the SBA loans, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you buy a company today, close on an SBA loan today, your first 6 months are paid by the government. Is that still true?
That is true. Yeah. So you're absolutely right. September 20th is the date. So yes, I am proactively trying to buy companies as a result of that. And I don't know that the coronavirus has pushed anybody across the finish line. Have you tried using like the timing of it? Because you can technically pay a little bit more for it today if you get the SBA loan before September 20th, correct? And
yes,
you could possibly share that with the seller.
I appreciate you ruining all my negotiating power. Right?
They're not listening. They're not listening.
They're not paying attention, Matthew. Yeah, they don't even know we're out there.
I'm trying to get them to commit right now.
Yeah.
No,
I'm doing for you.
The answer is yes, as long as you close before September 20th. And the SBA will pay the first 6 months of your fees. So if you use an SBA loan, typically a 7A loan, that does happen. So yes, that's absolutely a possibility that we'll be able. And again, it all depends on if certain people make certain decisions to sell their business to us, right? Like we can willing buyer, willing seller. We're actively a willing buyer right now. We think that. I was a part of the last recession too. I think you were as well, Duke. I mean, you and I kind of got into business during the last recession, and it's very painful on property managers because if we get back into foreclosures and we get back into people losing their house, especially investors, if you recall, we used to go to NARPM events and it was. We'd have whole things on what to do with somebody getting foreclosed on, 1 hour topics, classes. And I think a lot of people, especially if you're close to retirement, are just like, man, I do not want to go through that again. And so it may be an opportunity where if you are a seller, you could get out of your business, maximize the value of it right now. And then you won't have to worry about all the foreclosures.
That was a great sales pitch there, Matthew. Great job.
True.
Right now, my number should be flashing at the bottom of the screen.
And you can buy his book at the door. He's selling them for today only. You get 20% off his book.
That's right. If somebody calls me today, I'm going to give them an extra such and so dollars. But they're going to be dollars that I borrowed from Duke Dodson's as he negotiated them right out from underneath me. What about y'all, Vince? Are y'all buying 3%?
Paying 3% more for something now is better than not getting it at all. That's my point I'm trying to make to you. But go ahead, Vince. Sorry.
I didn't catch the question.
Vince, are y'all buying companies? I mean, I was on the hot seat there for a minute. I'm really uncomfortable and would love to switch to somebody else.
That'll get people watching this, is seeing you squirm over there. That's good.
We'll look at companies right now, but we're not actively closing on any at this time, at this given moment.
And what's the?
Does everybody hear that? Does everybody out there hear that?
What are you waiting?
Ready to pounce. Ready to pounce.
My number's blinking again.
Vince, explain to me I think I know the answer, but I would love to hear the logic behind that. And what are you waiting for to happen before you guys engage further?
So, let me clarify. We will engage now. We will look at opportunities now. Like we want, if Matthew's number is blinking on one side of the screen, you could have my number blinking on the other side of the screen.
We're going to be off by one digit though. That's
part of it is we're digesting. We just went through a big integration. We integrated all of Texas. So we're very thoughtful in taking on more business. Like what we would do is we would engage in a conversation now, but not integrate it until later this year. Also numbers are kind of in flux right now. So to the sellers, credit, like we don't want to ding them for a 2-month blip in their revenue. And we'd rather see that pick back up when there's hopefully some stabilization. So it's a little bit harder to nail down valuations. Matthew's probably looking at, June's numbers to lay out his valuations. We want to be fair to the sellers and give them the most value for their business. So,
mine is like Matthew's like a flippant gunslinger, and we're very thoughtful and intentional with your business.
Hey, Brett Favre and Peyton Manning, right? They're both going to be in the Hall of Fame, right?
Oh man, Duke, would you classify us as somewhere right in the middle of those two strategies, or like
depends on the best of both worlds?
We need to put our number right here. 8-0.
Depends on which way the wind blows, Tim.
Yeah, that's generally how we feel.
But yeah, that's
Mikey,
funny. You talk like just the other day. Tim called. I was talking to Tim, and we had one potential target, both small, one in one market, one in another. And Tim said something like, "Well, should we just engage one?" I was like, do both. So, it's funny to hear how thoughtful companies do it and how gunslinger Tim is what I would say about us.
Yeah, that's generally how Duke and I do things. We just talk about it for like 30 seconds and we're like, well, I'm kind of done having this conversation, so let's just do everything.
let's just make $500,000 decisions in 30 seconds.
Why not?
Honestly, like what are you gonna do if you put more time into the thought? Like you're going to come to one of two decisions, and
you're just going to
justify.
Yeah, at that point, you're just justifying what you already decided you were going to
do. Exactly. You can skew the numbers in any way you want them. I learned that in statistics in college. You just
but the reason, in all seriousness, the reason I asked Vince that question is because, like in the multifamily, people buying real estate world, investors, I'm hearing both things. I'm hearing we should wait and see. There's a lot of uncertainty. Like you look at a spreadsheet, and every metric on that spreadsheet is uncertain, right? Looking like in multifamily, we're looking at exit caps and what your leverage is going to be, like as far as the LTV and interest rate, all that's in question. So they're saying wait. On the other, and I hear very smart people on the other side of the aisle saying no, buy now. The next 6 months is going to be your best opportunity to buy anything. So it's just funny how smart people can see the world so differently. Goes back to risk tolerance, I guess.
Well, I don't disagree with what Vince is saying. I do think that being thoughtful and intentional during this time, and not just being kind of throwing caution to wind because you hear, hey, everything's on sale, because I don't really think it's on sale. And I do think that this is probably not going to be a quick recovery. So it's not like you got to jump fast and do it fast. I really think it could be a 12 to 18 month, maybe a 24-month recession where there's going to be lots of opportunities come down. You hear a lot of great companies that died due to indigestion and not lack of deal flow. And so you also I think all of us need to remember to be thoughtful about, there are going to be more deals. There isn't just this deal, and there's going to be more deal. There's going to be another deal next month, and then another deal, in the next quarter. And this isn't the last deal that's going to come. And I think the more, seasoned people like the Mine, like Doug and Vince and all the folks at Mine, they know that, right? And so they're being willing to be patient and wait on the right opportunities to come along.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that,
boring.
Our industry is set up, the management companies who could survive this. Like, I think a lot of the folks that were sellers prior to COVID are no longer sellers. They're seeing their 401ks get hit. They're seeing everything get hit except their management company, right? Their management company is that one steady, solid cash flow that they really could bank on. I think we actually went into COVID with 4 deals in executed LOI. And 2 folks were just like, you know what, this is not, we want to hold on to our business right now for as long as we can. And we're going to try and ride this out. So I think you're going to see both sides of both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Are y'all hiring right now?
So at the beginning of the COVID crisis, we froze all. We separate hires into corporate hires and property management hires, and we were hiring the property management folks only, the ones that we had to hire to fill in a seat that was vacated. We froze all the corporate hiring. We haven't reopened corporate hiring yet, but we're getting close.
What's that decision look like?
Expected cash flow, like May, we'll see how May rent collection goes and how how the next month as folks open back up and things go well in other states. And we think it's going to go well in Virginia. And we think the rent collection is going to continue as we did in April. Then I'd feel comfortable hiring again.
Mikey, you said yes.
Yeah, we're active. We're slowly looking to hire a CFO. Basically, kind of just in the initial interviewing phase and kind of building out exactly what we want that person to do. So, we're also not on like a hiring freeze. We don't necessarily need anybody for our property management site employees right now. But we're definitely not. We're not frozen. We're not saying no hiring. So if a position if we need to develop a need for a position, we're going to be hiring. There's no doubt about it.
Mikey, this is a dangerous question, but what do you want out of CFO?
What do you want? That's a great.
What do you want? Yeah.
What do I want?
Yeah.
I think
we're looking at hiring a CFO, or have looked at hiring a CFO. We were actually at the 11th hour with one and pulled the plug actually right before COVID hit. Not because of COVID, but pulled the plug and decided just to. We had some other things happen, but I'm curious what you think a property management company CFO should look like.
I think that I've had some conversations with Brian Watson over at Dotson that kind of gave me a little more clear direction on what we were missing due to, both Adam and I. Adam's got a financial background, but he was in finance. And neither one of us spend the time looking as deeply into the financials as we should, just because we're busy doing other things, leading a team, running meetings, meeting with, big clients. So we don't necessarily spend as much time on it as a traditional CFO would spend. So I think we'll find inefficiencies in our company with having somebody looking at those numbers. I think we'll find ways to make more money where we're leaving money on the table, and just overall kind of get get more financially healthy as a company. So the person we're looking for is more detail oriented than Adam or myself. We're both kind of big picture thinkers. So that attention to detail is important to find in that person.
It's interesting. I actually explained this to my team last week because we're hiring some more accounting people, and they're like, we don't need more accounting people. We got too many accounting people. And I was explaining it to them last week that there's kind of three kind of accounting and finance tiers, right? There's this first tier of knowing your numbers and getting your numbers accurate. In other words, like looking historically on your business and making sure that those numbers are accurate. Telling what happened, right? Like everybody thinks of accounting as kind of telling you what happened. P&Ls, balance sheets, those types of things. But I think there's kind of a next level up that when you have a really robust accounting and finance department, you can start to figure out levers to improve things. So it goes from just telling you what happened to actual process improvement that will make us more money. And I even think there's a third level too that you can achieve, which is identifying opportunities. You'd be surprised. I was listening to a book recently called The Buffett Way, and he talked about three people that were kind of Buffett had he kind of fashioned his investing after. One was Benjamin Graham. One is the attorney that's his partner. Y'all can help me. But then
Charlie Munger?
Yeah, Charlie Munger. And then the third one, whose name escapes me, he was very big on robust accounting departments that were very forward-looking, that could see opportunities, that could see threats way down the road. And that's where we're trying to get to, right? Like we're just now starting to cover the numbers and get the numbers right and look historically back and see the numbers right. But now we need to start improving our processes, improving our margins, improving some of the gaps that we have at GK. And I think that's where a lot of people don't exactly understand their accounting and finance department. Curious, you've seen some of that, right, Duke, since you hired Brian?
Yeah, I mean, so for us, Brian, you could argue he's the COO and you could argue he's a CFO, and he kind of does some tasks from both. And you could also argue it's very hard to find someone who can do both. And I'm not sure I would tell everybody to try to find somebody that does both. Mike and Adam's situation is different than my situation, which is different than yours. But yeah, I mean, what he does for us, one thing he does is oversee our accounting department. We will likely, the next corporate hire we make when we open back up might be a controller. Right now, it's flat. It's Brian, and all the, divisional accountants kind of roll up to him. When Brian got here, we were basically doing just what you said, the first thing, which is just reactive accounting, just saying, hey, this is what happened. And he's trying to mold us and grow us into upgrading that department over time to be able to be forward looking and to, he came into office and he said FP&A, or is that right? Financial planning and analysis. And I had no idea what he was talking about. I was like, what does that acronym mean?
When I found out Duke Dodson had a budget, I almost fell out of my chair onto the floor. I mean, Duke knew how much money he was going to make this year before he made it.
Just to be clear, Duke doesn't have a budget. He gets to do whatever he wants. It's the rest of us that have the budget that we have to stick to.
See this new microphone? See, I didn't have to get any.
Yeah, there was no. I'm sure that's coming right out of my budget.
There was no approval. That's right. It's just who you're gonna charge that microphone to.
Yeah. Well, he does a good thing. One thing Brian does for us that's good is just challenges us whenever we go to spend money, which is the opposite of what I used to do. I would say, hey, I want to do this. Let's go do it. Write the check. Let's go. And it worked for a while, but it wasn't going to work forever. And so Brian, before we spend $1, he challenges us, convince me why we need to spend this $1, right? Whether it's hiring someone or it's buying something or to signing a bigger lease for office space or whatever it may be. And it's we call ourselves the yin and the yang, and the gas pedal and the brake pedal. At the end of the day, we usually end up agreeing on everything, but he's trying to instill a little discipline, financial discipline in the in-house, which at times can be annoying to the person who's asking for that request. Like when Tim goes to make a hire and Brian, I used to say yes, and Brian says no, but convince me why you need these two people. And I'm sure for Tim, that frustrates him a little, but also I think Tim has probably seen the value in it over time. If we continuously do that as an organization, we'll be in a better place.
And Mike,
absolutely. Yeah, I was just going to build on that real quick, Matthew.
Yeah, please.
Just just something simple like, what I was mentioning earlier, we got that 75 unit client. Well, in a different time, I might have taken those 75 units, scraped some off of our different pods, and started to build a new team. Well, instead, knowing that I would have to go to Brian or a CFO or somebody like that to kind of justify that, I looked at it. I kind of tried to look at the whole picture, and I found 70 other units that probably were in our wrong department. So we moved those units over to the right department, servicing that client a little bit better, whereas they might have stayed there and they wouldn't be totally happy. And so just little decisions like that, where you're like, all right, new units, new team, shifts your thinking just a hair. It's not a roadblock. It's just an accountability thing. And I think that's a big thing. And then I think Brian has done a good job of setting the strategy of internally. Michael, we've all seen your org chart when it comes to your accounting team. Brian kind of blew up our org chart and really set a new strategy for us. So I think that's an important thing to think of when you're thinking about CFO.
Mikey, are you thinking kind of a Brian type CFO that can also help you with some operations, or are you thinking more true CFO similar to mine's CFO?
I think the first and foremost thing is a true CFO. If he has some operational ability, that'd be very helpful. But I don't think we're necessarily, just due to conversations with you guys, especially Duke, I don't know if we're really that optimistic on that. So, Tim hit the nail on the head. Kind of what we looked at when we saw our accounting department is that there was a lack of leadership. So I think that the CFO is primarily, like, his role is going to have to be to take the whole finance, the whole accounting side of our business and really be the leader for them. So we want them to have a similar but different, like a similar outlook on business and be a good culture fit, but just be different than 50% of our company in terms of personality.
And then Vince, mine has an incredible CFO, right? I mean, y'all.
Yeah, Onker's great. He's in kind of a true CFO role where we have a controller that really handles all of our property management related accounting, and she's great as well. But Onker is more focused high level on not only kind of our fundraising aspect, but just making sure our corporate books are in line. And he's been on the founding team, so he's been a great resource for us.
And somebody, like, if you're in your situation, Matthew, where you're acquiring a lot of companies and you're looking at debt and other, types of, equity and options to raise money to buy companies, the CFO is probably gonna have a different role there than it would be. Like, if someone's listening and they have 5 to 10 employees, they probably don't need a true CFO. But when you bring fundraising into the equation, obviously Mind is a much more complicated organization than 90% of the, PM companies out there. But do you find that you may need a CFO sooner rather than later to help you with that part of the business, the sourcing of equity and debt and structuring deals?
Yeah, I do. What the big question I'm asking right now is, can I borrow that from some sort of fractional CFO? As y'all know, we have Curran, who is our director of finance, director of accounting, who is very talented. My question, he just doesn't have fundraising experience yet, but I think he can be a huge piece of that fundraising experience, but maybe with some help from somebody that's fractional. And so that's what we're thinking about now. We were at the 11th hour with a CFO that had fundraising experience, had private equity, a backed company, still worked at that private equity backed company, and kind of pulled the plug on it. And as you can imagine, there's just not a lot of those in Birmingham, Alabama. So we worked pretty hard to find this person, and we just decided now it didn't feel like the right time. So I do think, I don't know the answer. I do think that there's a possibility. We are going to need probably a certain level of experience that we don't have. But the question is, can I rent that or do I have to buy that?
Yeah. Well, that's for anybody that's listening that's trying to make a decision like this, like what Mike's going through, what you're going through, and what we went through when we hired Brian is like listing all the tasks that we think we want this person to do. And then beside each task, list like an hourly rate or an annual salary that you would have to pay for that, which you might find like in your situation, if it's only 5 hours of that really high level, task, then that's a fractional is a great way to go. But if it's 20 to 30 hours of that high level task, you probably need the full-time person. But fractional employees, especially high level, like are a great way to grow through no man's land, as Matthew and I have been doing the last few years.
It's a horrible place.
It's worse than the coronavirus, man. It's horrible.
The book is just, it's so good.
The book, like page 1 of that book is you're going to die. Your company's just going to die. Just get over it.
You have no hope of making it as a company.
I'm never going to read that book. That is official. Hey, I got a
Ignorance
question for you
is
guys. Maybe switch it up a little bit here. Maybe add some value for our listeners out there. What is one thing that you guys do daily that you think could help any PM in the business? One thing that you do every single day that you think would be helpful to somebody else who's trying to grow their business, whether they have 200 doors or 5,000 doors.
I'll jump in. I would say there's two things. One is, well, let me start by saying we're all working very hard to grow our businesses, right? And so it's a very stressful thing to do that. And so what are some things that alleviate stress? I would say, I'm going to say two things. That you said one, but I want two. So the first one is I love to read. I think reading books gives you the ability to zoom out and think holistically. Also realize that other people's businesses aren't all the unicorns and rainbows that you see on the surface. If you're listening to this right now, none of the conversations, and hopefully we'll get into some of them here on these podcasts, but the conversations we have are not about the things going right amongst all of our businesses, but it's the conversations that we have about all the things going wrong. So if you think everything's perfect at our businesses, you're absolutely mistaken. So reading, I think, is a great way to do that. The other thing I think is important is Mikey loves this, I think to get enough sleep. I have found that as I've started to be focused on sleep, and none of you guys do a good enough job of that, so I'm really preaching to y'all. As I've started focusing on sleep, I've started to be able to zoom out and think more objectively and realize that every tenant's not out to get me, every owner doesn't hate me, and start to think more strategic about the business. And so I would tell people that, as counterintuitive as it sounds, you don't have to work 20 hours a day to build this business. You can focus on high return things and get enough rest. So those would be my two: books and rest.
Yeah, mine will be similar. It's hard to say the one thing. So I'll summarize it into start the day in a good place. That's and a lot goes into that. So I'm cheating. I'm going to throw about 7 things in that bucket, but start the day in a good place. And for me, what that means is, start the day, don't be hungover, have good sleep, eat something healthy. And when I sit down at my desk for the first time, it needs to be about an hour to hour and a half before anyone is going to talk to me. And so that's when I drink my coffee and I read my 3 to 5 things that I read every day. And that's where I feel like I'm getting caught up on some emails, caught up on my reading, and starting that day in a good place. If I start the day by sleeping in too late, or by being hungover, or by eating a crappy breakfast, not exercising either within that 24-hour span, if I start the day in a bad place, it's hard for me to really ever recover and make it a good day. And so I don't put as much energy into sleep as Matthew, but I'm starting to put more. But I put a lot of energy into getting myself into that good place in the morning. And it definitely involves sleep, coffee, and just general health, so that involves eating and exercise and not being hungover.
I'll follow Duke up just because I think, again, I'm going to cheat the question and say a bunch of things, but I think routine is really important. And I do 2 things. First thing when I wake up, try to get up with my kids, have some coffee, and hammer as many emails out of my inbox as I can as soon as I wake up, whether it's 5 a.m., 6 a.m., whatever it is, so that when I really get going into my day, I can concentrate on the next part of my routine, which is the easy stuff, right? What is it, Charles Schwab or whatever, 3 most important things you can do throughout the day. So write those down, put them on my Trello board, try to hold myself accountable to that. And then at midday, and I would love to say I do this every single day, but this is from Sean Acor. But write 1 email of gratitude, say thank you to somebody, and then I journal out what I want the rest of my day to look like. So in the morning, I've got my set of things that I want to accomplish throughout the day, and at lunchtime or midday, I kind of analyze where I am and what does the rest of the day look like to make it a success. So try to do that every day as much as possible, and then obviously just anytime you're thanking somebody for something or being grateful, just puts you in that positive mind frame for the rest of the day. Because it's easy to get that post-lunch coma. You eat some brisket or something for lunch, and all of a sudden you're just sleepy. But if you're getting good vibes going, it makes your day a lot easier. Especially if you journal it out and write it out and say here's what I want it to look like. I
echo that, Tim. I start. I'm an early morning guy, so I get up at 4:30 and I start every morning. Like for the first 45 minutes, I use something called a high performance planner. So I don't know if you guys have heard of Brendan Burchard, but he has what I found effective. It's called the high performance planner. And I used to just kind of ad hoc do what you just said, Tim. And I found myself not being disciplined enough to remember to write down the top priorities for the day, the tasks for the day, gratitude for the day, and then you end the day. So this planner, I've been using it for about 9 months now, and it helps you measure. We all 5 of us, we want to measure our data, right? Measure our success, measure our progress. And it's enabled me to look back, not only because at the end of each week, you're forced to score yourself each week and what you accomplished, what you didn't. And in the minutia, it's kind of hard to see that. But when you look back at 6 months and you're like, wow, what I was writing 6 months ago has really evolved over the last 6 months. It's added fuel to my fire. So I sent the first 45 minutes of the day, I don't look at my email unless it's from Doug, because he's always emailing me at 5 a.m. But other than that, I won't look at my email. And I'll just focus on the high performance planner. And it really kind of sets my day up for success.
Mikey, you asked the question, but back at you.
I love that.
Can we answer for you? We know what you do. Can we answer for you?
Brendan Burchard, is that what you said? High Performance Habits?
Yeah, so he has a book called High Performance Habits, but the actual thing I use called the High Performance Planner.
That's cool.
Send that out in the text.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Okay.
Oh yeah, or that. Yeah, that works too.
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of the same stuff that you guys are talking about. Timmy, I was going to say, my favorite thing is just sending out a positive message to somebody throughout the day. That's one thing. So kind of going along the same lines though, we have a daily stat tracker that we fill out every single day to make sure we're holding ourselves accountable to whatever is most important to us. So, reading, Matthew mentioned that, working out, multiple people have mentioned that, and then, sending a positive message to a friend, family member, coworker, that kind of thing. So a lot of the same stuff you guys do. I do like the idea of having it in a physical journal. I don't physically read enough and I don't sleep enough. So holding myself accountable to those things, I think is important. So, but yeah, my sleep habits has changed. I averaged, I don't know about the dumb Whoop strap, but I averaged 7 hours and 49 minutes per night last week on the Garmin. So
That's
focus.
For people listening, you used to average 4 hours, right?
5.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Less than 5 sometimes.
Matthew saved your life. He did.
That's where I've been my last 40 days is 5 hours and 27 minutes or something crazy. I'll sleep when I'm dead. The other thing I do every day to really get through my day is text you guys.
Oh.
But it's seriously though, we're pretty competitive, so I mean it's it does keep you going, it keeps you motivated. We all push each other, it's pretty positive, other than when we're making fun of each other.
That's probably the best part.
Wait, it's all making fun of each other.
Well, yeah, but sometimes when you guys are making fun of other people, it inspires me.
Oh yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
When we take down other people.
Exactly.
Right.
We don't make fun of people, do we?
No, we don't. We mostly make fun of we make fun of them in front of their face. Oh, okay. Well, never mind. All right, last thing. Let's wrap up with what are you reading?
Wait,
Duke, start us off.
we got a very pressing question we still haven't addressed. So you can't be saying this is the last thing we're going to talk about.
What is it?
We'll do this one. What are you guys reading? And then we'll go to the most important question of all.
All right, what are you reading?
The listeners are definitely waiting to hear the answer to this one. They've listened to all of the minutes of this for that one last question. All right, what are you reading? I can tell. I'll start since I went last the last time. I've been tearing through books, so I could give you any number of it. I would say that the one that's been most impactful for me is The Customer Service Revolution by John R. DeJulius. It's a great book. I think it can impact every single one of your businesses and will. The team members that have read it have loved it. And we've now taken our 24K, our leadership team, and we're going to be doing a chapter of this book every single week. And I don't even know if there's so much content and so many good things you can take from it that we're probably going to need longer than an hour and a half to unpack each chapter. So it's really good. And then I'm reading Relentless by Tim Grover, he's the trainer for, I think most of you guys know this, but Kobe and Michael Jordan and a bunch of other greats, Charles Barkley. And that one is interesting. It's a good read. I'll let you read it. It's a great read. Very motivational. I don't know. I don't necessarily identify with everything he says. And he kind of, not necessarily promotes, but kind of promotes being a total animal. But at the same time, there's a lot of good info in there and a lot of motivation.
Well, Michael Jordan was an animal. When we're shooting this, we're about 6 episodes into The Last Dance, and man, that guy, whew.
Yeah, I texted this to my buddy today. If he does not have a gambling problem, as he claimed last evening, then I definitely don't have a drinking problem. Get out of here, dude. Just because you have unlimited money doesn't mean you don't have a gambling problem.
Yeah.
I'll go next. Just got through as much as I wanted to of high output management, and now I was handed this book by my wife. She's in a group at Capital One. They're reading a bunch of stuff. It's called Leadership and Self-Deception. So I'm about to get into this right here.
Does your wife recommend books for you based on what's wrong with you?
She does not. She got into this group at work, and she got like 20 books delivered. So she just handed me some of them and said, just start going. Gotcha.
Okay. Most of these books are actually because you guys suggested it. I finished Whatever It Takes by Steve Schwartzman, which was good. Blackstone story, but there's another book called King of Capital, which I read a while ago about the Blackstone story, which is pretty amazing. I just finished American Kingpin, which is about the guy who started the Silk Road, which a lot of good business lessons in there, even though the business was illegal. Maybe that's the first business lesson is don't start a business that's illegal. But it's a pretty fascinating story there. And then I just started grinding it out. The Ray Kroc story, the McDonald's story. So I started that yesterday.
What an inspiration, right? Ray Kroc.
Yeah, I mean, like if you've watched The Founder about him, I learned a lot about it. Obviously, in business school, we learned about Ray Kroc and learned. I think my guess is that he's one of the guys that I wouldn't like as a person, but I can respect a lot of the things he did. I think he was kind of a jerk, but that you can just like on the Facebook message boards, you can pick. Hey, pick this nugget out, and I'll leave the rest. Well, you can pick some things out of Ray Kroc, and you can leave some of the stuff too.
I'm reading The Hard Thing About Hard Things.
Yeah. It's a good one.
You recommended that one. I love it. Actually, our company's reading it right now. So we have a Mind Leadership Club, and that's the book of the month. So
it's a good one.
That's a good one. I'm halfway through it and love it.
There's a great podcast with him and Tim Ferriss. If you go back through Tim Ferriss's stuff, and just really awesome. A couple hours. My 2 that I'm reading right now I'm going back through Principles again. This is probably the 5th time I've gone back through it. Like, there are books in your life I think you should make that if you really buy into them, you should make them almost like your word. Like the book is in your head and words just come out of your mouth. And that's what I'm trying to do with Principles. I'm trying to essentially memorize it, going over and over and over.
Idea of Meritocracy at the office now?
Idea of Meritocracy. Radical Transparency, the machine, all of it. Love that stuff. Love how he thinks about the business. And then Jordan Muela was nice enough to send me a book, Fooled by Randomness, by the guy that wrote Black Swan, Nassim Taleb. And basically, I don't know why Jordan sent this to me, but I basically have no hope now that everybody's just lucky in business. And I texted Jordan the other day, and I'm like, man, is there any hope? Like, I feel like I need to read something that gives me some confidence after reading this book. Like, what was the goal? And
I know he's a big, like, listen to data, ignore anecdotes guy. Is that the gist? Or not?
Yeah, I think what his thing is that no matter how successful you are, there's always that kind of black swan possibility that something can happen, like the coronavirus, which is probably why, if I had an awesome restaurant that was making tons of money, no matter what happens, the coronavirus. And so he kind of invests with the idea that naturally, consistently, coronavirus type episodes are going to happen. So you either invest super conservatively or invest around taking advantage of things like the coronavirus. Taking advantage sounds wrong, but knowing that those types of black swan events are going to happen, that you can kind of prepare for those. So that's it, unless Mike wants to present one last nugget.
This wasn't even my question.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Who in the heck is Gary Ortschied?
If you're in property management and you're listening, maybe this guy has tried to friend you 4 times in the last week. I don't even know if he's allowed. I thought once you asked and said no, that Facebook wouldn't let you. Somehow this guy
So I accepted his friend request, and then he deleted me as a friend.
Just so you can ask again.
Wow.
The next day, I got another friend request from him. So then I just let it sit there to ask.
What does he want? What does he want?
Who is this guy?
He does keep popping up in my feed. He pops up as a potential friend, but then he's number one every single time as I'm going through my feed now of people. Hey, do you want to allow him into your Facebook life?
You guys thought his son was a great troll? This is the best internet troll of all time, man. Just every day you wake up and you've got a friend request from me.
Yeah, he's in my head.
Am I outside? Am I outside your house? Am I at my business?
I added him.
Nobody knows.
I added him as a friend. I'm interested. I don't think we've met yet, Gary. It's nice to meet you virtually. Tell me something about yourself. Crickets. So I don't know if you guys have ever, my buddy, he created an online alternate persona, and he calls himself the Gray Fox, and he set up a Facebook, and he's like, he just goes out and he reviews and does all kinds of positive stuff. So I wonder if this is just an extension or an alter ego that someone made to
oh man,
have another window up. I don't know.
Hey, please tag him, Matthew, and demand an answer from him, please.
Who are you, Gary?
What do you want? Say, what do you want?
What do you want with us, Gary?
Maybe he wants to be a guest. He wants to be a guest on the couch.
Michael, I haven't got any friend requests from a Gary or.
You are so locked down. We can't even friend request you, Vince. You aren't friends with anyone.
Not one of us on here is friends with Vince on Facebook.
Yeah.
Is that for that's for the dark side of your personality, Vince? Like you have an alter ego that just hangs out on Facebook?
That's the relentless side. Vince has got a secret dark world going on over there.
Yeah, that's the Goose's Facebook, not Vince's Facebook.
Tim and I, Mike, we lead with our dark side. We just lead with it. That's what we go with.
If you're just it's like being, just because otherwise people are wasting their time with you,
All right. I'm going to wrap this up.
Please.
If you like this, please rate it highly on wherever you get your podcast. You can download this at Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, all that stuff you're supposed to say at the end of the podcast. So, guys, thank you so much for this awesome time together. And till next 2 weeks. We're going to post these every 2 weeks, right? All right.
Wolfpack.
Bye, everybody.
Work.